What's up, Huskies? Welcome back to the final episode of On the Big Screen. My name is Sofia Azevedo.
And my name is Ben Parmalee.
And today we'll be talking about the movie Michael.
Michael is a biopic about Michael Jackson, the man, the myth, the legend, who's made many songs such as like Bad, Beat It, and Thriller. You know the guy. Basically, it's about the first half of his life when he was in the Jackson 5 onward to basically when he released the album Bad. So what do you think?
I genuinely had such a fun time watching this movie. I think it was almost like seeing the films that artists release about their tour after they go on tour. And it didn't really feel like a movie. It honestly felt like a sing-along with the rest of the theater. So I thought it was a really fun experience.
So yeah, definitely as a movie, you can see why the critic score is pretty low and then the audience score is really high. Essentially, there's no really deep plot. There's nothing interesting other than the fact that the relationship with his father and his other family members and whatever. But other than that, it's mostly about the music and about the process that he went through to create these albums and these musics and his thought process behind that and sort of just a lot of dancing and fun and music.
It depends on what you're going into the movie for. I was going into the movie having watched a lot of documentaries and docuseries about other famous artists like Elton John, where they go like in depth every conversation, hardship he's had in his entire life. And so I went in trying to learn something about Michael Jackson and see maybe how he became who he was. And the movie doesn't really touch on the specifics, but if you're going there to witness the feeling that people had when Michael Jackson was in his prime, like the people that would faint in the audience, like he was arguably the biggest person on earth. I think the movie did a great job in showing you like this is why he is who he is. And I was feeling it through the screen. Not to mention the actor who plays him, Jafar Jackson, is related to Michael Jackson. He's his nephew. So a lot of the scenes were very, very, very similar.
However, aside from his music, there's the other side of Michael, which some of you may know, and it's pretty controversial. He's done some silly things, which they didn't show on because I'm 99% sure that the movie was produced by his family or his estate or something. Basically, they cut the movie right when his career sort of took a downward shift and he got involved in certain controversies. And the questionable things about him that did happen during that time, such as like his vitiligo, which is something he can control. It's not his fault or anything. But it was a very crucial part of his career trying to hide it. They did show that, which I think was important. And also his nose surgeries, his rhinoplasties, they also did show that. And his abusive backstory that kind of shaped who he was as a person, because Michael Jackson, his psychological profile that a lot of people, because he's the most famous man on earth at that time. Everyone was trying to figure out who this guy was. A lot of people kind of labeled him as having arrested development and very childlike. And they did show that throughout the movie by essentially having lots of toys, lots of animals, and all of his friends were honestly animals. He didn't really have many friends that were adults, so.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny. I think there were some elements about the animals that were obviously not realistic that kind of took me out of the film. I was like, why is this monkey trying to read a book? But it was really cool, and I like how you put it that way about it kind of shows that he held on to that childhood expression that he didn't get because of his father, and he never really got to choose what songs he sang, when he sang them, how he sang them. The dad was very adamant about practicing all the time. So we got to see him expressing himself, and I think that really makes sense because if you see Michael Jackson perform, he's always moving, he's always dancing, he's shiny, decked out in sequins, his songs are very expressive, and I think that's why people love him so much.
As we said, the main conflict of the movie was his relationship with his father throughout his whole life, not even just as a kid. Even after he's an adult, he's still being controlled by his father, who's played by Coleman Domingo. And he did a really good job being this crazy father that really wanted to control Michael. And he had a really believable performance, and I just want to shout him out.
He really did the good job of trying to make it seem like all of his decisions and the way he spoke was for the better of the whole family. He's like, oh, I'm doing this for the family. I'm doing this for your brothers. Think about how good this would be for us. But in the end, yeah, he was really just after himself. And I think the moment in the movie where we see Michael on tour with his brothers and he announces on stage while performing that it's the last tour that the Jackson 5 are going to do, that was basically a direct parallel to the actual event. And I think that was a really good job lining those significant moments up. And it looks the same and it feels the same. And it's really good for audiences that are our age because we didn't grow up with Michael Jackson. So this is kind of the closest that we can really get to feeling that experience.
following that scene, which actually ended up being the ultimate scene, was essentially a musical, a concert movie. Literally, they just played the song Bad in its entirety, fully choreographed in this CGI stadium with all these fans going crazy. And it was literally like a concert, like you're actually there with Michael, but it's in like 4K, modern quality, and all the fancy shots. But it's literally him. It's Jafar Jackson. It looks so much like him. Oh my gosh. When they first switched from the child actor to him, it's like, oh my God, that is Michael Jackson. It's just crazy to see on a screen in 2026.
It was very, very eerie. Like he would show up sometimes with his sunglasses on or posing for the album cover, or even when he turned around backstage, I'm like, that is literally Michael Jackson. You guys are lying to me. Like you resurrected him from the dead. I also think that it was very impressive for Jafar to dance like this. I think he danced very, very well. He had that sporadic but planned, organized moves that Michael did. And he did a really good job in every front capturing his uncle's identity. I think he really deserves a shout out because that is a very hard man to encapsulate. The biggest pop star that we've ever had and will probably ever have.
We all know he had an extremely unique voice, even when not singing, just like talking normally. He also captured that very well. I was like, oh my gosh, that has to be Michael.
Honestly, the better he did, the more not creeped out I was, but the more uncomfortable I was. I was like, this is really right. But then you do get used to it and you really do feel like you're watching a Michael Jackson concert. They did a really good job showing all of the different eras of Michael with his clothing, and throughout the film kind of subtly dropping hints that they were about to shift into like the Thriller era. We see him walk into that bar establishment to film the music video for Beat It. And even if you don't know Michael Jackson or you don't actively listen to him, we all know these looks, we all know these beats, and it's like your subconscious body knows what's about to happen. That's how big these things are.
Also disappointed by how little they showed Thriller, because we all know the Thriller music video. They recreated it to a T, like it looks exactly the same, but they didn't really utilize it. I feel like along with essentially playing the whole song Bad and having that be its own music video, they should have done that with Thriller as well and played the whole Thriller song, because that's also great. But I guess that's a personal thing. Maybe the critics would also hate that. Playing the whole song in the middle of the movie, that sucks. But no, I think that would have enhanced the movie quite a bit, especially since it's such a cool set with all the set design and movement, and it's just so iconic.
I was going to agree with that. I think the movie, they didn't go all the way with one way where they're doing a whole, deep dive into Michael's career, kind of like, have you seen the Elton John documentary, Rocket Man? Oh, it was very, very good. You have like actual footage of him speaking, actual documents, everything. They didn't go all the way over there, but they also didn't go all the way to like a recreation of Michael's songs. They're in that weird spot where they did, like you said, they did a whole run of Bad, but they didn't do a whole run of Thriller, and they tried to incorporate some of his background, but then all of a sudden we're dancing again. Like Chicago is one of my favorite songs, and I know that wouldn't have made sense to be in the film. But if you're going to make it a fun experience and only kind of focus on his songs, I feel like they should have gone all the way with that because the audience would have loved it. We were all singing along. I
feel like the two biggest flaws of this movie is that A, it potentially ended too early. I can see why they did it though with all the stuff that happened later in his life. And B, there just wasn't enough music. They had a plenty good amount, but for Michael Jackson, who he is, they should have done way more. So when the movie cut to the credits after Bad, I was like, what? Where's the rest of the movie? Where's the other half?
I also was very, very surprised. I was with my friend and I was literally telling her, I was like, please don't tell me this is the end. Because it was such a cool pose with his hand in front of his face. I thought this was going to be, that moment halfway through a movie where you have that quote unquote climax, and then that's kind of the starting point. Like you get there and then it's okay, now we're getting into the real stuff. I thought that's what was going to happen. Like, oh, he's finally broken off. He's his own act. He's got a best-selling album. And then the credits started running and I was like sitting there, finally excited, finally getting in the groove of things. And I just go home and play Michael Jackson on the way home.
For what we saw on the big screen, it was pretty good. I would say it's definitely worth to see it on the big screen. Biggest screen you can see with the best audio, loudest audio you can see, because it really is like a concert at the very end. And you got to see that in the biggest and greatest possible format.
I 100% agree. I think if you see it at home, then you might as well just open Spotify and play his album on Spotify. I think seeing it in the theater with like surround sound acoustics in pitch black, 100% think it's worth it. I'm struggling to find a rating for this movie. What would you rate this movie?
As a movie, it's probably like a 2 out of 5. But as an experience, I would say it's like a 3.5 out of 5. If you go into this just being like, hey, I just want to have fun, I just want to listen to some good songs, you'll enjoy it for sure.
I 100% agree. I think if you're going for an experience, this is probably a 3 or 4 out of 5 movie, solely because I think it just should have been longer. Highly recommend seeing it in the big screen, and thank you guys for listening to our podcast.
Bye, Huskies.